Okay, so I think we're ready to get started with training class, basic training class number 2, which is the Scheduling for Supervisors class. And during this session, we're going to talk about some additional functions that our supervisors will have. I'm going to log in now with someone with supervisory credentials. And you'll notice that as I click on some of the menu options, I'm now seeing additional screens that were not made available to basic users. And most of those screens are going to be found under the Supervisor menu. And that's really where we're going to focus our time for the next hour. So the first thing we're going to talk about is managing time off requests. We know that there's some time off requests already submitted to us. So we're going to use our Supervisor menu to select Manage Time Off. Up top, we have filtering options, so we can view requests based on the date range. I will switch mine over to view all requests that are pending for this year. Then I have additional filtering options, so if I'm looking for a specific employee, I can do that. If I'm looking for specific types of time off, I have that option as well. Or I can search within a group or department within my organization. If I do not use the filters and just click on the search button, it will show me all requests that I have the ability to approve. I can click on this pencil icon to bring up the form. Based on the time balance information that I have, maybe I might approve it, I might deny it. Once I switch to status, I can click on the Save button, and the employee that made the request will now receive an email notification updating them on the status. Now, aside from approving, I can also modify portions of the entry. I can switch the day off type or the hours. But in using this as the original example of just the supervisor viewing and approving or denying, I may just use time balance information. Now, that's not the only way we can approve entries. We can also approve it by viewing the daily schedule for the time off being requested. Let's take a look at today's schedule. We'll move over to the daily one. And I'm going to change over to the 20th. Now, if I'm a supervisor and I receive an email, I'm already receiving the details. I know the name of the person, the shift that they are trying to take off, and the type of time off. So if making sure that the shift is operating at minimums is something I have to do, it might just be easier for me to navigate directly to the date. That way I can view the schedule, and if I still need help, I can then use a tool found under the Supervisor menu called Hourly Validation. This could be run for any day. Now, if the shift is operating at full capacity, this will be displayed in green. And I have examples of certain parts of my schedule where that's the case. So here, for instance, I'm covered. I have more than enough people. But where it is labeled in red is showing me I have a shortage. So I will not be able to approve time off requests for that period of time. Now, along with the needs by hour, it will show me what my rules are for that particular group of schedules, and it will also allow me to see the details, who is working and what skill set they are contributing towards. Now, using this information, I can go back to the schedule. Again, if it was not obvious just by looking at it, I can then go ahead and approve or deny that entry. To approve it, I can click on the item, and over on the left side, I can select Change Time Off. That will bring up pretty much the same form that was filled out in the first place. I can then mark it as approved and click on the Save button at the bottom. When I do this, an email will go out to the requesting employee, and now the day off has changed color from blue to green. Now, overtime is approved in a very similar manner. Under the Supervisor menu, we're going to select Manage Overtime. You'll notice that the filtering options are identical to what was available for approving time off entries. If I just click on the Search button, it will show me all pending overtime entries. Now, approving these may not be a matter of viewing schedules. Here, we're simply just verifying information before we go on to approve it. So by clicking on the pencil icon, I can view whatever details, if any, were included, and I can then approve it or deny the entry. Now, by approving overtime and time off items, you're automatically making them payable for payroll. So you don't have to do anything else at the end of that 2-week, payroll period. You've already done the work. Okay? You just have to make sure that all of the items are approved in a timely manner. I'll go ahead and approve a few more. Now, if you approve an item where the pay type was comp time, as soon as you save that, the time gets placed into the employee's bank for them to use at the factored amount. You work 2 hours, a time and a half. Well, once that overtime entry is approved, you're going to get 3 hours put in your bank. Now, you can also approve these items directly off of the daily schedule. So if I was to go to the, let's say, 19th, I think I might have an entry in there. Yeah, I sure do. There it is with the question mark. I can click on that item, and over on the left, I can change overtime and approve it right from here. Let's click on the Save button, and it's done. Now, aside from approving the entries made by other employees, we might sometimes have to just post it directly onto the schedule. Let's go back to today. Actually, I'll go to the 19th. I'll go to a fresh day here. If someone in that shift calls out sick, I should just be able to click on their name, and from the request time off screen, fill out the form. Now, because I'm logged on as a supervisor now, I have the option to select other people from the list, something basic users could not do. I can then complete the form, choosing the type of time off they're taking. And under approval status, because I'm a supervisor, I can just mark it as approved because there's no need to go through the whole approval process. Let's click on the Save button, and now the day off is posted onto the schedule, and it is pre-approved. Now, if you are using our security templates, there is a restriction built in where supervisors can post time off and overtime on behalf of other employees as pre-approved items, but they cannot do it for their own. So if I, as a supervisor, try to request a day off, I'm not going to have access to the approved button. I only get it if I'm doing it for someone else that might report to me or someone that I supervise. So a question came through with regards to an employee calling off sick at the same time. Well, good question. Once you post that employee on a sick day, they cannot go in and do it again because you already took them off of the schedule. I can only request time off on an actual schedule record, right? So anyone here could request a day off, no problem there. But Jeff is already off of the schedule, so he can't do it again. Now, you might also have a certain policy in place that states, listen, if you're going to call out sick, you're going to have to talk to someone. It's not enough to just log on and put in for it, right? Because a supervisor may be responsible for filling your spot if you just caused a staffing shortage. So even though the system is allowing you to do it, there might be some department guidelines that would restrict that kind of use. Now, let's do the same thing this time with overtime. Instead of just approving someone's overtime request, in certain situations, if we have a staffing shortage, we can just post that directly onto the schedule. The way that is done is we can click on this green button just above the shift that we need coverage on. That loads up that single shift view we've already seen a few times. Over on the left, we're going to select Schedule Overtime. Now we can use the form to select the person, the date, and the shift that they're being assigned to, the reason for the overtime, and the payment option. Now, this would mean that we would need to know that information before we post it. So if you're using whatever method you're using to determine who should be working in that spot at that time, we would need to know, is this going in as time and a half cash or time and a half comp, or is there some other payment option offered? Next, we're going to enter the times, whether they are working the full shift or a portion of that shift. We're going to mark that as an approved entry, and at the bottom, we'll click on the Save button. Oh. I may have chosen the wrong person. Let's try that again. Okay, I think I might be okay. The other two I chose were actually already working during those hours. There we go. So now the overtime is posted on the schedule. Let's return to the daily schedule. And there it is. Now we're going to take a look at some of the other supervisor functions, and then when we wrap things up, I'm just going to talk very briefly about using other methods for overtime, posting open shifts and using call lists. We're going to talk about those at a very sort of generalized level because for those of you that have such a practice, it differs from department to department. We actually have separate classes for filling overtime using what we call a replacement policy, which is a rule-based system for hiring for overtime. For now, though, we'll cover some of the other basic supervisory functions, things that most people will need. And so we looked at approving time off and overtime and posting those on the schedule. We're going to move on to the switch requests. And that's also found under the supervisor menu. Right between manage overtime and manage time off, we're going to look at manage switch requests. Here, you're going to set the date range for the request you would like to see and click on the refresh button. Now, just about everything here has already been approved. There's one that was left over. I'll go ahead and use that one. We're going to click on the blue arrow to the far left. And based on the information provided, we can then approve or deny that switch request. I'll go ahead and approve it. And it looks like there's some time off that's been posted since the request, so it won't allow us to go through. That's actually a good thing. Now, once you have approved your request, they will be posted on the schedule for everyone to see. We saw an example of that in the basic user class. There it is. Now, if I need to undo that switch, I just have to click on it, and over on the sidebar, I can select Undo Switch from the sidebar and Undo to confirm. That's something that I can do for time off and overtime entries as well. In the event that they get canceled, I can click on a valid day off entry, and I can delete it. As long as it is a valid time off, overtime, or switch, I can undo it just by clicking on it. Now, if those entries get locked by payroll, well, then I can no longer do it. At that point, payroll takes over. They have to extract that information for reporting purposes. but up until that time, you can modify or delete those entries as needed. Now we're going to move away from some of the requests. We're going to take a look at some other items. Before we do that, are there any questions on approving time off, overtime, and schedule switches, or even modifying those? And I'll go ahead and just open up the mics. Okay. Nothing so far. Okay. All right, so going back to today's schedule, on the day shift, you may have noticed zones that were assigned to some of these employees. And so depending on how you're using the schedule system, jobs in a police department could be patrol areas. In a correctional facility, it could be a location within one of the units. For a fire department, it could be a particular apparatus someone is assigned to. Those are jobs that we may choose to post onto the schedule. And so we're going to talk about how that's done. To do it, we're going to go to the Supervisor menu, and we're going to choose Manage Daily Assignments. We're going to select the date, followed by the shift that we want to assign jobs to. I'll stick with the day shift. And you'll see everyone listed on the left who is working, who has not yet been assigned to a job. Over to the right, you're going to see all of the jobs that I have in my system. And the ones in orange are ones that have already been assigned to someone. We are then going to use just a click and drag to bring over everyone into their job assignment. Now, aside from using this to assign jobs based on the examples I just gave, you might also have certain pay upgrades. If you have someone who's an acting supervisor, you can assign them to that job. Okay. Just click and drag and drop them right into that box. So that job assignment might be important because that person's pay might be affected by the fact that they're working as an OIC, or maybe they're doing a field training for someone. There could be a number of pay upgrades. Once you have moved those over, you just have to go into the schedule view, the daily schedule to be exact, to see those jobs posted. So that was the Manage Daily Assignment screen. At the very bottom, there's one called Update Schedule Details. This does the same thing, just gives you a slightly different interface for doing it. Here, you're going to take the job assignment and you're going to place it onto the person's work schedule. So this is good for cases where you might build someone's job assignments out for an entire month. There's no save button. It saves it as you move each one over. So you would just have to go to the schedule, go to one of those dates, and there it is. Whether you're using the Manage Daily Assignments or Update Schedule Details screen, within each one you have the option to jump to other types of job categories. So you may not only have an option to create in order to assign jobs, but you can do it to vehicles or even types of equipment. Really anything that you may want to apply to someone's working schedule, you could assign, either day-to-day or using the Update Schedule detail screen to build it out for a month or for a week. Okay, I'd like to open up the mics and ask, are there any questions on assigning jobs? Okay. All right, we're going to look at a few more screens, but this time we're going to work off of the daily schedule. And because most of our supervisors are, in charge of a particular shift, we're going to take a look at what we call the Schedule Actions menu. This is what appears whenever you click on someone's name. I'll click on David Wallace, and over on the left are some of the common functions we might need to perform for that person. As you click on someone's name, the name changes up top. Within this list, we'll take a look at View Entry first. This just allows us to see the person's workday, along with any job assignments that they might have, like their zone. If I was to select another shift, like administration, and I marked someone that had a vacation day, the view entry screen would show me more information. It will show me not only their regular work day, but it will show me the details of their vacation day, such as the timestamp. I'll go back to my day shift where I started. I'll click on David again. Now over on the left, we'll take a look at the next screen on the list. Add comments. If there's any additional details I just want to add next to David's name, maybe it's instructions for something he has to do during his shift. Any comments you add will be posted onto the schedule. Comments typed here, when saved, will be displayed under the details column. And I'll just return to daily schedule for a moment. So what you'll want to do there is keep in mind that any comments you add can be seen by everyone in the department. So these are not private notes that only David would be able to see. Now to remove those comments, click on David's name, go back to the Add Comments screen, and then you can just backspace over those notes. Now, even though we only selected David's name, it still brings up the whole shift, so you may choose to add comments for other people at this time. Just type away, move on to the next line, and continue doing it until you're finished, and click on the Save button. Next up, Move Employee. This allows me to move the employee from their original date and shift over to another shift, maybe even an entirely different work day. And you might do this if you're moving the schedules around to accommodate training. So I may choose to move that employee to, let's say, the 19th onto a training shift. And we're done. Now, if you move somebody that's just for a single day, it doesn't change their base schedule, it's just for that single day, and they will receive an email letting them know that they've been reassigned. Let's move on to the next item, change schedule times. Even though I selected one person's name, when I select change schedule times, it brings up the entire shift. This works well if you have someone who is working slightly different times from everyone else. Enter those times, and it will just be adjusted for that one day. Let's click on the Save button. And now the hours are displayed under the Details column. Next, Remove Employee. If you just need to remove someone from the shift, they're not taking time off, maybe you're just moving their schedule around, click on Remove Employee and confirm Yes. That will now remove Brian Gibbons from the shift. We looked at requesting time off already. Let's take a look at substitute, switch, and reciprocate next. Now, we talked about switches earlier from the point of view of the employee requesting the switch. Now we're going to talk about it as if we are posting it directly onto the schedule. I'm going to choose a day where I know I have certain people working. Let's go back to today's schedule, to our daily view. And I'm going to post it for April 20th. And for this example, I'm just going to have 2 people trade shifts. It will be for the same day, but just to keep it simple, I will select the person, select substitute, switch, or reciprocate from the menu on the left, and I'll have 4 options here. So I'll talk briefly about each one. Reciprocate and switch are almost identical. In fact, you'll notice that the window below does not change at all. We talked about a switch earlier. This means that the employee is coming off of this shift and trading with someone below. I'll choose Bill Foster. Same day, they are just trading shifts. Now, if I leave it set to switch and save it, it gets posted on the schedule. We saw examples of that before. I also mentioned that a switch is never reported to payroll. It is, think of it as a note being posted onto the schedule. That's it. Now, if I click on any portion of that switch, I can undo it using my sidebar. I'm going to do it again. Same person, same dates, but this time I'm going to leave it set to reciprocate. I'm going to choose the same names. And when I save it, it still posts it the same exact way we saw earlier. Here's the difference, and it's an important one. This is reported to payroll, in that you are officially changing this person's work shift. If I was to bring up a timesheet for Bill Foster for April 20th, it would show him working the day shift, not his original night shift. There's other things that might affect pay that get transferred as well. If I pay shift differential on my night shift, that means that Guy DeMemo, who's working for Bill Foster, will now get the differential. Let's click on one portion of that, and we are going to undo reciprocate. We'll click undo to confirm. So if your agency does pay shift differential and switches then result in the person earning that, you have to use reciprocate. The problem is an employee cannot request that form of a switch. They can only request ones that do not affect pay. Okay. So those are the differences between the two. They get posted the same exact way. It's identical, but one affects payroll and the other does not. Under substitute, this is pretty much option for option the same thing we saw from the employee's point of view when they requested it. The only difference here is that we are choosing the person that's working for them, the date, and the shift. Let's go back to substitute. Sorry about that. So under substitute, we have the employee coming off of the schedule, the employee, and then the times. So if Darren here was working the full shift, and it looks like this is currently being entered in AM/PM format. We click Save, and it gets posted onto the schedule. Now, the substitution, just like was the case when the employees requested it, do not affect payroll in any way. Let's undo that substitution. And then finally, under that same section, time. This is just like the substitution. The only difference here is that we now have the option to specify a bank. And we talked about using that as a form of payment for someone working for us. So using this, not only is Darren working for Guy on that day, but comp time is being transferred out of Guy's bank into Darren's, who's going to be working for him. Okay, so that's it for some of the additional supervisory functions, the most important ones. I did want to point out that under the report section, supervisors are going to have a group of reports, a lot more than basic users had. And so we're not going to look at every report. I'm just going to show you an example. We're going to use time off, the time off activity report. So when you run an activity report, you're going to have really the same filtering options for each one. You can set the date, choose the employees you want to run reports for, and I'll run it for all 42 of mine, but you can obviously hand pick, or you can even do it based on groupings. Maybe I just want people in a particular squad. Well, I could do that. But for this example, I will just run it for everyone, for all 42 employees. And because this is a time off related report, under reasons, I'm going to choose the time off types that I want to report against. Over on the far right, we're going to click on the search button. Here's your time off summary report for every person and every code you wanted to report on. Over on the right, you have a pie chart. You can switch that over to a bar graph if you would like. And you can then extract those reports out as PDF or Excel documents. So you can run reports for time off, overtime, job assignments, all through the report menu. And that's it for the supervisory functions we had on our agenda. Now, I would like to point out that we have additional training classes available, depending on any additional features you're looking to perform through our system. And so some of those are going to be found under our advanced setup and training classes. So I'd like to just talk about those for a moment. As supervisors, sometimes we might be responsible for assigning employees to training classes, assigning extra duty jobs, or even filling overtime using some sort of a rule-based method. We have additional classes that you can attend to learn how to set those items up and to manage those. So, for instance, if you do have a rule-based system for filling overtime, you'll need to sign up for and learn the replacement policy, how to configure a replacement policy. If you schedule part-time employees, we have a class for that. If you are going to work with extra duty, we have a series of classes for those as well. We also have training help out. So if you're not quite sure how to proceed at this stage, we would suggest sign up for a training help out. That way you can speak with an instructor, and we can guide you, help you set up a training curriculum or catalog for yourself to make sure that you're getting all of the training offerings. Now, with that said, one of the common ones is filling overtime using a replacement policy. So I'd like to just go back to the today's schedule for a moment and just demonstrate that briefly for you. Under the night shift, if I was not just posting the overtime but using a call list, I can click on the green button, and over on the left, I would select Run Replacement Policy. This is going to generate a call list for me. Up top, it's going to summarize the details of the shift I'm trying to fill. I can select the reason for the overtime. I'm going to switch over to Advanced. What that does is that now allows me to select a replacement policy group. Maybe I have a replacement policy rule for filling officer spots, or one for filling supervisor spots. I just have one generic overtime one. I'll click on the Find Now button. Now I have a list. I can start calling from top to bottom. Based on the responses I get from the people I'm calling, I can either accept or decline. Okay, so maybe Carla declined the work. That brings me to the next name on the list. Maybe they accepted, and now I'm just completing the overtime form. If I was to look back at today's schedule, under daily schedule, that overtime is now posted on the shift for me. You could also use an open shift. That allows you to create an overtime opportunity that someone can sign up for. Now, we saw how to sign up for them during the basic user class, but we never looked at how to create one. Under the Supervisor menu, we're going to select Add Update Open Shifts. And now you're going to fill in the details of the shift that you need coverage on. I might need coverage on the day shift. I may need someone with a specific skill set. I can choose the date or date range that I need to fill, followed by the actual times I need coverage. We're going to select the reason for the overtime and any additional details we may want to add about that overtime. When you click on the Save button, you can either send a general notification out, letting people know that open shifts have been posted, and they can then sign up for them, or you can use your replacement policy notification. This allows you to use your rule system to send a targeted message to just the people who are able to work. When you click on the Find Now button, instead of calling everyone on the list, you are sending everyone who is eligible a text message for which they can then accept or decline the overtime opportunity through. Based on how your rule system works, whether it's by hours worked or first come, first serve, this is then information that can then be used to make sure that the right person gets the overtime assigned to them. Now, that's a very brief overview of what is covered in a replacement policy class. We're going to teach you how to build those rule sets and then how to use those using either a call list, an open shift, or a direct text message to the people capable of working. But that's it for scheduling for supervisors. At this time, I'd like to take any last-minute questions anyone might have before we close out. And also just a reminder to start signing up for the advanced classes if you have not already, or at the very least for a help out if you require additional guidance. Okay, if there's no other questions, then that's it for me for this afternoon. Thank you so much for attending this class. Greatly appreciate it, and we'll see you at the next one. Thank you.